So there's not much. Yeah. Just
Welcome to Olalu's Entertainment Podcast. We are live in studio, and this afternoon we have a special guest, two of Liberia's most prominent political commentators, Chairman Henry Costa and Chairman Benjamin Sen. Gentlemen, welcome to Olalu Podcast.
thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's good to be here also.
First, let me ask you guys, how's life? How's things for you? How's things going, Chairman Costa?
And when somebody says chairman, he's referring to chairman of COP. And when he calls Ben Sandy chairman, he's talking about chairman of Liberty Party. So he calls us both chairman. So don't get confused. Well, thanks for the question. Life is good. We thank God. They say each day above ground is a good day. And so we're very grateful to God to be alive and be in good health. And I want to seize the opportunity to, in a very special way, thank the team, the staff at Olalu's Entertainment, owned by a very enterprising young man that we will get to talk about a little in the grand scheme of things as we proceed. Thank you very much.
Same here. It's good to be here. Talking in life, life is good. We thank God for just for the opportunity to be alive. And as I sit and I think about how far we've come, you can only be grateful. And I too want to join Henry in thanking the Olalu's organization for putting this together. I know this is a wider audience. We have folks across the region, right? Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, Nigeria, other countries. So this is the unification of what we're talking about, bringing everybody together. One of the things that I always talk to Henry about the artificial borders that we have in West Africa. Sometimes it's mind blowing, but it's good to be here, and I'm looking forward to a fascinating conversation.
Great. Before we don't just start with this, the Council of Patriots, COP. They have been talk. People been asking where is COP. So we want to ask today, two of you, leads of COP. What is the of COP today?
It's interesting you bring up the COP, and that my brother Ben is here, seated from across me. What a lot of people don't know is that the idea of forming a movement before even we give it the name COP was birthed largely and inspired by conversations my brother Ben and I used to have, the state of affairs in the country at the time. And we decided we need to stand up. It was not as some people thought, sinister motive. But really, we're not trying to bring it on there now. We're just trying to wrestle with them to get them to, make a shift in the way they were doing certain things. Speaking of where the COP is at, we have a new administration in power, as you're aware. They've just been in power for a year and a few months now. We've made a decision to step back a little from active political activity and focus on entrepreneurship, how we can contribute, on the economic front. That doesn't mean we're completely done with politics. We will come back, but for now, that's where we are.
Yeah, I think like Henry said, I think the COP, for me, I would say, my mindset of it was always something bigger, right? I remember at one point during the conversations, I told him, maybe we should start a political party with the COP, and we laughed about it. But I think one of the things that people don't give the COP a lot of credit for is the reawakening of the then opposition in Liberia, because the opposition in Liberia at a particular point in time was almost like it was in hibernation, right? People were giving the government a chance. some of us, those of us who have supported the government, the former president at a particular point in time, have fallen out with him. There were some issues, that we all had to look at. But then I thought this people's power-driven movement, starting from the angle where people got a chance to express themselves, right? Express themselves and do it, and then obviously leading into what is now remembered as the largest protest ever organized in the country. So, like he said, I think it's just a period of, of cooling off. The thing about politics and the thing about advocacy, it never leaves your veins, right? You get a chance to want to continue, but as you continue, you want to be strategic in how you're going to do so. Just like he said, even me, many people ask me nowadays, they say you're a little coy when it comes to politics. Why are you so coy? Because, sometimes it's good, Dominic, for you to just take a break. Sometimes it's good to just take a break, take a deep breath, spend time with your family, stop a little bit, get involved in business, make money, put yourself in a position of strength, and then you recalibrate. But I think I don't think the COP is dead. I think it's in a state of, it's just hibernating at this point in time. At some point in time, it may not be Chairman Costa or me or somebody, but there's a next generation of young leaders that will pick it up. And I think that's the mindset.
Henry Pedro Costa. When that name is mentioned, no matter what happens, it draws attention. A young man, in fact, he's known today as the 50th most popular disruptor, or what the hell do they call it, in Africa. But people are asking, where is Henry Costa? What is he doing right now? Share with us what's been happening in the last 2 years.
Well, to answer your question, you're referring to, we were very humble back in 2020 when we were picked by the Africa Report magazine as the 33rd, most important African of the top 50 African disruptors, and that was largely in part to the work we did with the COP, the work we all did, Brother Ben and Mo Ali and the rest of them, that thousands and thousands of Liberians who supported us. We caused some very constructive disruption on that in the political landscape. Now we're trying to see how we can cause some economic disruption, positive economic disruption. So we're not going away. We're just taking a break. Sometimes, when you've talked and talked and talked for so long, when you were one of the loudest voices, there has to come a time when you have to take a break and keep quiet and listen to other people talk. So that is what we're trying to do now. Listening, engaging, and in some ways trying to rebrand ourselves. That's what we're trying to do. And continue to be meaningfully, impactful in the country.
Yeah, before I go to Ben, do you know that whenever you make a statement, whenever you make a comment, a post, do you realize the attention that you draw, that your post generates?
Yeah, well, we do, but it doesn't pay the bills. We know that, and we're humbled by that. Sometimes it's the gift curse. You have a gift, you have a talent, and when you use it, and everybody wants that gift on their side. They're not really interested in you, Tommy. They're interested in what you have, what you can bring to the table. And that's a general principle of life. People want what you bring to the table. They don't care about you. You're a good-looking guy. But what can Tommy bring to the table? At the end of the day, you have to realize is that I need to make my own table rather than going to somebody's table. It's okay for people to want me to be at their table, but let me make mine and let others come to my table. So that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to stay away things that can be construed as being either for or against. Because we are for Liberia, you know, and we're trying to stay clear of any kind of controversies.
Chairman Sebi, former chairman of the Liberty Party. Now people are asking, what happened with Ben? What's going with Ben? Ben is quiet. I know he supported the CPP. Later on, he supported the former president. But today people are asking, Ben has gone quiet. What's happening with Ben?
So listen, full disclosure, I think my mindset is similar to Henry's mindset at this point. You know, and many people don't know how close we are, right? Well, I think people know how close we are, but they maybe not to the depth of how close we are. I think we talk almost every single day. That's how close we are, right? And I know he the last time we were talking something, and I would say it here, Henry, if forgive me. There's something he said to me. He said, you know, Ben, the difference between us and a lot of the political class, right, is that if Ben or Henry makes a decision in an election, right, it's not that Ben and Henry are making a decision based on love of country or interest or whatever the justification will be. To the public, because it is perceived in the public. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not poor people, right? We do well. We have families, we you know, but we're not where we want to be. But because people have this perception that, oh, everything they do is money driven, right? So if they make a decision to go and support George Weah, it means George Weah has given them $100,000 or $200,000 or $50,000 or even sometimes $25,000. Sometimes they even bring it down low, right? It's true when you think about it, right? I mean, let's be fair. And something he said to me, he said, well, Ben, the secret to this is self-empowerment. Is that people understanding that you can stand on your 2 feet. That even if you make a decision that may seem selfish in their eyes, they will make an excuse for you. And there are several political figures today in Liberia or in West Africa or wherever. Look at President Bola Tinubu. Look at other leaders around the continent. Let's come to Liberia, right? There are certain people who the population make excuses for because in their mind,
They have money.
they have money. Those people are well off. There's no way Musa Bilete, example, Musa Bilete, our friend and brother Musa. There's no way Musa can go support George Weah for money. Why? Because Musa is a businessman.
For example, just be right of what Ben said. And this is true, we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
And I told Ben, I said, Ben, it used to pain me that every position we took, sometimes not even political, sometimes on the talk show.
Yeah.
If you support a certain thing, people would say you're supporting it because of money.
Yeah.
It's painful when you know it's not. And the only reason they make that accusation is because they know you're not wealthy.
Yeah.
They know we're not poor. Because I mean clearly they know we're not poor. But when you get to a certain threshold, like Musa Bilete, hate him or love him, nobody accused Musa Bilete of supporting Alex Cummings for money.
Exactly.
When Musa Bilete seemed to have left Alex Cummings, nobody thought he was doing it because. So you want to get to a point where you are economically well off. The Liberian people we're a traditional society. In the village, the people that make town chief and they make paramount chief, the men who got the biggest farm, the most wives, the most children, is associated with wealth. Liberian people give you power based on the perception that you have wealth. Our dear friend McGill, he ran for Senate in Bakuru County in 2014, where his father hails from. McGill came 5th or 6th place. The very same McGill, a few years later in 2023, had 2 counties from which he could run in. Three.
Magili and Babu.
Yeah. McGill chose to run in Magili. McGill got more votes in Magili than George Weah received. And it's not because McGill was literally dishing money out to every person who voted for him, but the perception that McGill is wealthy. People give power to people who they think have wealth. George Weah, for one,
a successful man. People know he made a lot of money, right? So even if he no longer had the 80 million they say he had, but Joe Young was still a relatively well-off man, a wealthy man. So the perception, people take you more seriously when they think you have money or when you actually have money. Now we don't want to be the thing we have money. We actually want to make money. So I told my brother, man, I said, look, baby, this is the truth about it. We supported Joe Young in 2023. A lot of people still beat up for that decision we made. A lot of people are convinced and they will go to their graves believing that we made money from supporting Joe Young. And God knows we didn't do it for money. But they believe we made money. So until you get money, you have money yourself. With all this political clout we have, all this voice we have, when you combine that with money, nobody's going to tell you, say, oh, you're supporting John Brown for money, you're supporting Paul for money. So that is why we're focused on economic empowerment before we return to politics. That's it.
That's great. That sounds good. But let me ask you. Right now, everybody watching. We in 2025. We got 2026, 27, 28, and 2029. Eyes are on you guys. They're definitely. I mean, if nobody eyes on nobody, on both of you guys. People are watching to see where your move will be. And right now, you say you're trying to be economically empowered. And so right now, what's the landmark landscape? What's the roadmap from now till the next election for you?
It's about four and a half years before the next elections. It's a relatively long time. A lot can happen. But because we've been around this political game for a while, we were able to make some deductions and calculations and basically see what things will, how the landscape will generally look like, right? But at this point, we're not politically committed to any side. At least I know my brother and myself. We're not saying, oh, if the election helps, they will support John Brown. But we're talking to people. We're engaged with people. We have friends in the government. Take the vice president and myself. Who would have thought that today Jeremiah Kuhn would pick up the phone and call me? I would pick up the phone and reach out to him. We have a very good relationship. The folks in the CDC, I don't have any beef with them, even though some people think I do. I'm just hurt that we supported them and they lost. Perhaps if they had won, I would not have been hurt.
And by the way, I think it was the interview you did with you, right? And somebody asked you that question. I know around I got that question, right?
Would you be mad at them?
You said no, I wouldn't be mad.
No.
So no, that was real. That was real.
I mean, because we're only human, right?
Yeah.
We want to support the win side.
Yeah.
But the people in power now, we have many friends. We fought us in the COP. We got Mo Ali. We got so many friends. Ben talks to a lot of these guys. We talk to a lot of these guys. They're our friends. They're all asking us, what are you guys going to do? But 2029 is far. So for now, let's see how we can contribute to the country economically. And then by 2027, much closer to 2029, we'll be able to know where exactly we can go.
Well, as you're aware, you know that you are a very powerful voice. And people, for instance, like you said in the past, you made other people, you support other people, and you believe now you have graduated from that stage. You're not going to be the more peaceful people and talk, make people hear. So, are you thinking aware that whatever decision you will make in the future, you are asking whether you're going to run, whether you're going to just lay it out or whatever the case. But are you aware that whatever decision you make in the coming years will be very, very impactful?
Well, there are those who would say any side will support loses. They forget we made Senator DeLong. The COP, we championed DeLong's cause when it looked like CDC would have never lost months without that. Who thought CDC was going to lose months without that? Somebody DeLong launched his campaign on the day of the protest, June 7th.
He announced it on the flag.
He announced it on the low bed flag. And we stood with him. He was a great candidate. We're not going to say, if we had picked any Joe Blow, they would have won. DeLong himself was a great candidate. But the force, the momentum of the COP catapulted DeLong to victory in 2019. We beat CDC badly. 2020, 1 year later, citizens said the man's application senator, right? We know what happened. But it's all healthy. It's healthy for our democracy. There are those who, when they see what happened in Liberia, they think the skies are falling. Look, our worst days are behind us.
True.
We had a war. Today, we have a democracy that is not there yet, but it's fledgling, it's growing. Today, we can go to court. Opposition people can win cases in court. Government people, looking like they're fumbling in the court, trying to, put evidence together to prosecute people. It's a healthy thing. That's what you have versus having one to take the hook and just back out orders and call for somebody to be, summarily executed. So what we believe is that whichever side, if we didn't have value, nobody would want banks to be on our side. Nobody would want me on our side. Only the people who side they think we're not one are the ones that can say we don't bring anything to the table. So we get that. But we think that we can still help make somebody and still make ourselves at the same time. Rather than just being focused on making somebody as opposed to making ourselves. There are so many positions. So that's what I think, that's how we think.
Before I go to Ben, let me ask this question. Today, Liberia is considered the poor poor country in the world, and we are at the bottom. We are struggling. Now, you have traveled a lot extensively, and you're also involved in the business and area too. I mean, if somebody asks you, how can we get out of this state of being right now?
That's a great question. And this is something that is not unique to Liberia. I'd like to expand to Sierra Leone, for example. Guinea, Ivory Coast, right within our beautiful West African region. We're tremendously endowed with natural resources, which are finite. Iron ore, diamond, timber, gold, and all of those resources will run out. Maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now. But what we have resources that are infinite, that will never run out. We have human resources, which is the most important resource. We have a huge population, most of which is under the age of 40, and youthful, exuberant, and trainable, teachable. And we also have great soil, arable land. 40% of West Africa's rainforest. We have great rainfall, fertile land. The single greatest opportunity for Liberia to break itself free from the shackles, the perennial debilitating shackles of poverty is agriculture. It's the lowest hanging fruit to manage George. You don't need investors to come and do this. You borrow hundreds of millions of dollars within a 6-year presidential term to build roads. Why don't you borrow the same hundreds of millions of dollars to do mechanized agriculture? We import $250 to $300 million worth of rice, 90% of which comes from India, the world's largest rice producer. $300 million goes to another country to create jobs in that country, to give them much needed foreign exchange, when we have land and we can grow that rice right in our country, create thousands of jobs, clearing the land, cultivating, harvesting, packaging, distribution, keep all that foreign exchange in the country. So the single biggest way is agriculture, value addition, agriculture, that's it. Nobody should tell you can build factories to compete with factories in China. You can't. Chinese make things and sell it for a few dollars. You can't. But agriculture is the way to go. I think it is the single biggest opportunity. And then we need to begin to do things like natural resource. We need to begin to socialize some of our natural resource assets. Other countries are doing it. People think it's taboo. I'm not a fan of military governments. But when you see what Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso is doing, some of the economic things that he's doing, he's a brilliant young man. He just recently nationalized 5 gold mines. 5.
So that's why I wanted to come to ask you a question. What are your thoughts on nationalization? Do you think it's a route that Liberia must? Do you think it's a route we need to look at?
Absolutely, man. You and I talked about this.
Yes, and that's what I'm.
Look, I had a meeting the other day with the NIC boss, Jeff Beagle.
Yes, I remember that.
And I asked him, I said, look, Where are we with Putu? Putu iron ore mine in Granger County is Liberia's single largest iron ore deposit. There are two feasibility studies, one of which was done by a reputable firm from Australia, which states that Putu has 4 billion tons of proven reserves. 4 billion tons. A ton of iron ore now goes for around what, $100, something dollars. So Putu has 110 million tons of DSO, direct shipping ore, that you literally just need to carry trucks and excavators and load it and export. So the Russians have Putu, Severstar, we all know how they left. But the Russians are willing to offload Putu to get it off their hands for $20 million. In fact, I thought it was more than that. And he said to me, he said, no, Henry, the Russians only want 20 million. So as I said, do you know, what if Liberia set up a Liberian iron ore mining company owned by the state? And then the government went to the central bank and borrowed $20 million from the central bank to buy Putu back from the Russians, buy them out of their MDA. And then the government now collapsed Putu into the National Iron Ore Mining Company as an asset and use it based on the two feasibility studies we have with credible data suggesting that Putu is worth maybe $150 billion. Use that prospectus, go and raise capital and find a technical partner to come and develop Putu. First target the 110 million direct shipping ore and start exporting 5 million tons a year. He said, Henry, that's a brilliant idea. I said, why are you not doing it?
Yeah.
I said, for example, Georgia borrowed $83 million from the central bank in 2023 to supposedly pay salaries for civil servants. Why can't you borrow $20 million from the same central bank to buy Putu iron ore mine rather than wait for another foreign company to come and acquire it for $20 million and then flip it for $200-300 million and still maintain equity stake in it? He sat up alone and looked at me. Why can't we take B Mountain back? B Mountain generates about $700-800 million in gold every year.
In gold export.
We get 3% royalty.
Yeah.
And you ask me why we're poor? That's how we're poor.
And
we get 3% royalty.
And look at where D Mountain is operating.
Yeah.
Does King George look like a place that's $700 million worth of gold?
Every year.
Every year.
Every
Do you know what is $700 million worth of gold?
So what can change that?
So that's why
Nationalize it.
Nationalize it.
Take it over.
But Henry, so this is where I probably want to go. Do we is it because there is this thing, obviously we are deeply pro-American. We have this sense of belief that we're a capitalist economy, because I don't think Liberia is a capitalist economy, by the way, because capitalism in the sense of the word itself, right, is I don't know how it applies to a country like Liberia, right? Because I think what is actually happening in a country like Liberia is exploitation at its highest peak. When you think about these, now you have the Salamata, the Metal Steel debate, you have all these debates. I see Antoine and fighting for their counties and stuff like that. So the question for me though is this the lack of political will? Is it the lack of innovation? Or are we just scared to do this?
It's everything, man.
So let me ask you,
It's mediocrity.
but wait, now, if you were put on the table to negotiate, right now, what would you be asking for right now?
Look, there's something called bargaining chip in every negotiation. ArcelorMittal has 5 years left on their MDA. They want to extend it. They're building a concentrator to incentivize the government to extend their MDA. They want 25 more years. If you extend ArcelorMittal, I'm not saying the government shouldn't. They should, but we should try to extract more from them. But how can you extract more when your mining laws are pretty weak? When your 10% free carried interest, that's what the mining law says. The mining law says that every mining company, iron ore mining in this particular case, the government should have 10% free carried interest. We don't even have 10% free carried interest in ArcelorMittal. Another thing about ArcelorMittal is that they are engaged in, like most multinational companies, they engage in what is called transfer pricing. They extract the iron ore, rather than selling it on an open market, they sell it to another company that they own for a lower price, and they never declare profit.
because when they declare profit, they have to pay you a royalty.
Exactly.
So every year they tell
We
you.
don't have,
they're
and we
at a
don't have
loss.
the, mechanisms or the system
So
in place to
determine,
be able to
yeah.
verify.
So that's what I
Determine.
do. I read Jan Twine's letter, and I think what Jan is doing is not a bad thing, but I think it's a fruitless effort because one senator or a caucus from a county, it's not going to be able to stop it. ArcelorMittal is going to have the MDA extended, more than likely. Look, let me tell you something. When I saw those pictures, and videos from Nimba, where the president was, and they had supposedly gone to commission a $1.4 billion plant.
Yeah.
Do you know what 1.4 billion is? Speaking in Liberian terms, our GDP is $4 billion. So that plant alone is about a quarter of our GDP or a third of our GDP. And you have a $1.4 billion plant and the roads within that facility, the roads are muddy roads, lava roads, dirt roads.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to put $50 million into building the roads and paving those areas. And people are still living in containers and prefab shacks. And the government is okay with that. And we're going to extend the MDA.
And Lanco operated that area. I would think by now it would have done.
Go back to the same standard
Yes.
somebody in charge.
Yes.
The housing units are still there.
Still
It's one of the things Jan Twine and some members of the caucus have raised.
Yeah.
The housing units are still there. You have a 25-year deal. You have structures that only need to be roofed or re-roofed and fixed up. You can fix that. You prefer people sleeping in containers? Are you vacationing? You have a 25-year concession. You're asking for another 25 years?
There was something else you highlighted that the plant can be dismantled.
Yeah, but they will take it when they're
done there.
But they didn't use what Qatar did.
Yeah.
After the World Cup, Qatar spent about $300 billion on the World Cup, right? But guess what? Most of the stadiums,
Where
they took them down and donated them. Yeah.
Wow.
So they will take that whole plant and carry it someplace else. And then you'll be left with from Nimba Range to Nimba Hole.
Recently, the president he gave Nukal 4 oil blocks to perhaps market or to make. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a good thing. If my dear friend Fabian Lai, who's a brilliant young man, he's trained in oil and gas. He now presides as head of NOCAL. I think if they manage what they're trying to do here is they change the petroleum law of the country, which allows NOCAL to be a player in the field, in the industry, in the upstream industry, and in the downstream as well, because I heard NOCAL is planning to start importing petroleum products, which is a good idea to generate revenue. So NOCAL now operates as a part private company, part public company. So they will own those oil blocks, and then they will then find equity partners to come and invest in them. So I think it's a brilliant idea.
So let me I want to chime in on that. I'm not sold on it yet, just for the record. Maybe this is me being not being as informed. I maybe Henry be.
No, I don't know all the facts myself.
But I'm not sure. But and let me tell you why I'm a little concerned about it, because like he rightly said, NOCAL is operating as a private and a public entity right now. The concern for me is what we're talking about, what we're even talking about regionally. What's in there to guarantee Liberian participation? What's in there to not have the same situation that we had under Julie Bryant, when Arthur Easy came to Liberia and paid a couple of tens of millions of dollars and flipped the oil block to Chevron
For
250 million, right? So my question for me, and that's the piece, and that's why I know you have Fabian coming on TCA today, and that's what I'm going to be listening out for, because I want to know, what is in there for local content, right? Because I remember the oil law of 2002, the one that Charles Taylor passed, was very rigid in calling for Liberian participation. In fact, there is a story that that's where he got in trouble with, with some of the folks in the international circle. My thing, and then I understand Ellie watered it down. And from what I also have been told is that the clause that President Joe Biden is using was inserted in there, or it was when the law was done through under George W. administration, the executive, what is it called? The executive privilege or something that the president has that right to in the interest of the state. I also do know that has to be done with legislative consultation. Now, for me, that part I'm not really worried about because I think the president can say, you know what, I've consulted, the legislature to do this. I am more focused on what is going to be the local content. How is this going to be an old boys club thing? Is it going to be friends of people who know the president or know the vice president or know the powers that be? Or are we looking at having conversations with the Liberia Chamber of Commerce? Are we looking at having conversations with the Liberia Business Association? Because one of the things that I know for sure, and I know Henry and I have had these conversations, is that we gotta get comfortable in Liberia where we start to make millionaires, where we start to see our brothers and sisters and not tearing them down. Liberia, in many African countries, by the way, I would not try to be an expert on all of these other African countries, but the mindset is that we're so comfortable allowing Lebanese, Indians, and other nationalities to come into the country and make the kind of money that they make, and we become subservient to them. So I think we need to graduate to a stage, and that's why I said the issue of the Nukaki, I'm still on the fence with it. I'm still waiting to hear and get the information that I need, because I don't want to see another situation. If someone is going to flip an oil block, I want it to be a Liberian. That's my point, Tommy. If someone is going to flip an oil block and make $250 million, let it be a Liberian. Let that person bear a Liberian passport.
So how do Liberians get to that point?
And just to piggyback off of what Ben said, it's a very perennial and age-old problem in our country. Liberians don't want to see fellow Liberians make money and get rich. Because self-hate is real in our country. There's no whitewashing. Administration after administration, they all do the same thing.
Yeah.
I remember President Bwaka used to tell me this all the time. Henry, it's a shame that we have to go abroad when we're running for office in Liberia, to go to Ghana and Nigeria, to beg Nigerians and Ghanaians to give us money for campaign. He used to say this to me. He's big on this. I just hope that the people who work for him will help to effectuate that vision. I will give you my own case. We had a situation with some foreign people, some Chinese people fighting over a piece of gold deposit. And, the folks at the Ministry of Mines and Energy, they're looking at pro-Liberian policies to help Liberians. If a Liberian man wants it and a Liberian man can't get it, a Liberian man should get it. Just what Ben is saying. It's one thing for the president to have that mindset, to be comfortable for Liberians to make money, but it's a totally different thing when it comes to what are his people who work for him will actualize that vision, will actualize that mindset. So they have to streamline and make a government policy and enforce it. So we don't want to see another Atta Easy come to our country and make $250 million while flipping 3 blocks of Chevron. Exactly. He sold us 3 blocks of Chevron.
And meeting 30%.
And meeting 30% in each of them. Blocks 11, 12, and 14. Yeah. $250 million. So we hope that.
So that's a question for you today for Fabian.
Yeah, you can ask him.
Yeah.
What is it doing? And local content too.
Local content.
Is in the law.
Because that there's the oil services. There's also the oil services group. There's a component of the oil services, right? Mm-hmm. Where the rigs the people who are working on the rigs, the feeding, it's a whole ecosystem
Yeah.
that Liberia, just catering alone.
Look, I'll tell you this. Speaking of that, let me tell you a story. Christopher Neal, who was president of NOCAP, had tried to set up a company to provide. They got a name for it. They call it something. I'll get a name. They call it a hop or something like that. He was trying to build it in. What's the company? He had a company called Energy. He was trying to build it in Basso. Everything, land, everything. Trying to build it at the port to provide essential services, support services for oil companies that were doing exploration within our hydrocarbon basin. And do you know they killed it? Yeah, they killed it. They killed it. And this was so sad. And this is the way our country is. We don't want to see our Liberians make money.
And like I said, it's a whole sector company.
Okay, we'll take our first break.
Sure.
Logistics piece.
Let's take our first break and then we'll get back. Thank you. We off now, right? We off?
No, yes, off.
Oh, break.
Take a little break, if,
Yeah.
food and.
Huh? I think the first round was good.
So, but what, is it on Facebook?
On Facebook.
Yeah, I just saw it and shared it. Yeah, well, I did about 160 watching. It's on YouTube and Facebook.
Okay.
But no, I'm on board.
Are you watching it? Is it on your, what do you say?
Actually, it's on my page.
Okay.
I just saw it 7 minutes ago and I shared it.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Where that flag on Minnesota. Who's that right by that?
Who's worried about Minnesota?
It's going Minnesota, but yes, Minnesota.
Oh,
But the people are that way. The people. I don't know about it. How long you keep that?
Smoke would move on a lot of.
so the woman has to pay for everything.
You pay like you go long enough.
Oh, you finished?
Pay the hotel,
There's a lot
everything.
of food.
But they know it's not not equal. Who does not need for a cent? Then they say no to put things seriously.
We don't get it too.
Oh,
Yeah.
you trying to bring it closer, eh?
Yes, yes.
That's good.
Yeah, I was gonna
Because
say,
I heard
yeah,
somebody
because
say that,
people,
it's
it's
a little
too far away, yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought those things are not, those are
No,
not
these are all.
for the after?
Yes.
Ah,
You
man.
have to edit it.
Closer.
Okay, because that, it looks so good on there.
Oh, trust me, you're going to love it.
Yeah, it looks so good on there.
So, are you seeing it right now?
Yeah, it looks much
Is it okay
better.
now?
Yeah.
So, our next comment.
Tony, well, come on, let's talk a little bit about tourism potential.
The poor say, the poor just do.
I mean, well, you.
Wait, are we still live?
We're like,
Yes, you still.
without that,
But muted.
Yes, I'll do that right away. And,
Oh, no, it's live.
yes.
you know what?
I think that
So
we
is this on, why am I listening on Facebook?
Why-
Well, you know,
why
No, no.
don't you just put it in like-
yeah, so.
So let's talk about tourism. So, Costa, tourism is a big word. Everybody talk about it. Have tourism bill now, thanks to the Representative Blue, but not Benson. He the one to be in our bill, right? Yeah, that tourism bill, finally been passed. How can we benefit from the tourism?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the bill that sought to create the National Tourism Authority.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to us Liberians in general, it doesn't matter who's involved. But I'm not impressed when we simply make policies or create new institutions.
I agree.
It doesn't work.
I agree.
It doesn't work. And it doesn't impress me. Tony, you said in living room and create 10 companies. But will they become successful? So I'm more impressed with the outcome, the results. Create a National Tourism Authority is not a bad thing, but it doesn't get dead. It doesn't get you dead. You have to sit and ask yourself. Take Sierra Leone, for example, right? I've been there a few times. They have some of the best beaches. Aberdeen. The nightlife there, man. They go to bed they close like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of Liberians travel almost every weekend to go to Sierra Leone. They got nice hotels, they got nice Airbnbs. So now we need to focus first on domestic tourism. Is what you need to focus on. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of tourism can I do? Only ecotourism.
Yep.
You have to focus on places like Robert spoke, was one of the best beaches for surfing. You have to focus on places like Marshall, build some nice cottages and bars and stuff along the beach. You can't be in New York City type of tourism because who's gonna come in that noisy city or all the pimping, they can get all over the place, So ecotourism has to be a focus. If you want to do tourism, look at your airport. It's one of the worst airports in the world. Horrible experience.
Yeah.
I support this administration, but nothing has changed with the airport.
Yeah.
It's still dysfunctional. You get to the airport, it's a hassle to get your bags. The place is excruciating.
What do you think that, why is that?
The incompetent
I'm still trying to
VC.
figure out why can we get that right?
Because with VC, it's just look. Incompetence is a typical Liberian thing. We're just good for nothing people. We make noise whether we're in CEC, whether we're in UP. When we come to power, most of us can't get stuff done. That is the truth of it. It's not for criticizing the government. Because I told Stephen Johnson the other day, he's a deputy
He's a deputy
civil aviation
civil
authority. I
aviation.
said, well, Zizu,
Yeah.
these are things the president should not be. I sat down with the president the last time, and the president was saying, look, they had just had that situation where the flight that came, there was no light, it had to be rerouted out there. I want to see him that night. And he's like, Henry, we're gonna fix this at the airport. I said, Mr. President, you have to. This stuff is embarrassing.
But I'm scared of having him. I mean, I thought it would have changed it.
No, it was. I think from what I really heard, the landing gear just blew up. That's all. It had nothing to do with the runway. I think the runway is pretty much still intact, right? But the issue here is, and I'll say this to you. One big man was there at the president's house from the airport. He had just come from meeting the president. The president was concerned about the airport situation. He had just come from meeting the president. I would not call his name. Then when he came to the president office, I went in next time. I asked him, man, what's going on at the airport? I said, what happened to the generator that Mahama gave? Mahama gave us 3 big generators, 1,000 megawatts, and the other 2 were 250 megawatts each. The generators were installed. So why did they kick in when LSE went off?
Yeah.
He said something like there was no fuel.
Really?
How the hell you gonna have no fuel? Now that one day you can't blame the president for that.
That guy should be fired.
You know?
Well, yeah, maybe that was that. But I want to pivot on something. When you talk about tourism, talk about you were very spot on when you talk about ecotourism, right? What is stopping us from doing peer review, right? Learning from countries or other countries that seem to have gotten this thing right, right? What is stopping us? What do you think? And you know, Henry, we have these conversations all the time, and that's why most of the time I know when we talk, I like to pick your brain on a lot of these things, because when I think about it, I'm like, hey, what is stopping us from doing peer review, from dealing with countries like, look at countries like Rwanda. I mean, these are nations that are intentional. They are deliberate. They are intentional. They have their mind made up. They take an example, right? Paul Kagame wanted to ban plastic bags in his country. It was just a stroke of his pen. Nobody uses plastic bags in
But
Rwanda.
we're talking about plastic bags, which is important, right? It's a great thing for countries to transition from our addiction to plastic bags to paper bags, right?
Yeah,
It's a huge thing. Even America, they struggle with it.
yeah,
But this guy was able to get a whole country to change its official language
true.
from French to English, simply because he grew up in Uganda. He couldn't really speak French. When he came back and became president, he realized he couldn't communicate with the population. He said, I will change the language too so you can understand me better. So the kind of discipline, the kind of competence, the kind of leadership it takes to accomplish a monumental feat of that magnitude, that is what is lacking in our country. Liberians are very laissez-faire, lackadaisical people. Today they put a man to my job. All your friends will be on social media. No, congratulations. But we are carried away.
Serve well, serve
Yeah.
well.
We are carried away.
That's the line.
Yeah,
Go and serve well.
we are carried away by the pomp and pageantry of the position, as opposed to the actual mechanics, the things that we ought to be doing in the job. That's why the country is the way it is. We all know all the solutions. Liberians are not dumb people, though.
Oh,
We know the solutions until we get to power.
So that's what I'm saying. Is it the lack of will?
It is a
It's
lack
just-
of will, it is a lack of vision, it is ingrained mediocrity. From the day we're born, we think small.
so how do we change it?
How do we change it?
Yeah.
You need one man. You need either a Kagame type of leader, save the brutish dictatorial tendencies, or a Traore, save the military coup, because I don't want military coup in my country. But you need a leader who bears those kinds of characteristics, a General Rawlings type of leader.
So let me ask you a question.
When you get that kind of leader, forget it.
So let me ask you a question. There is this new debate. I saw something on the internet the other day talking about Iman crying. Iman crying. I respect him.
The chief imam.
The chief imam. He's been making this argument about the legislature is useless. Why do we need a legislature? I thought about you because I wanted to get your thoughts on it, right? Do we need a legislature?
I like Imam crying.
Mhm.
He and I have talked from time to time. He's a radical cleric.
Very. I mean,
Very
I listened
radical
to him. He was like, and then I saw, and wait a minute, Romeo Kuya saying that the Senate
Yeah, he said it was someone in there.
someone in there. So he
Now, what a man.
apologized. In
He
fact,
didn't lift it, man.
in fact, he doubled down on
He
it.
doubled down on
He
it.
doubled down. He
You
said
know,
they are
right?
a bunch of useless people, and
But look, speaking of that, right? When Macky Sall became president of Senegal,
yeah, he
one of the
abolished.
things he
He
did
abolished
was
one of
that
the houses.
they had the bicameral legislature, the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
He scrapped it to a unicameral legislature.
Yeah.
To save money, make it easier to pass
Yeah.
legislation, more effective. So I'm not in support. Look, bro,
Of totally abortion.
even if we were to totally abolish the legislature, if you got VC president in the mansion, he will still not function.
Yeah.
And then you tell the man, say, my man, the man can't drive in brand new car. You think that is solution? Brand new car, not a solution for VC driver. You need a good driver. What is the guy? Oh, you will manage with the car.
But what is the argument about at least it's saving us some money?
Well, yeah, it saves you some money. But if you had an effective president, a visionary president.
And by the way, just for the record, you've always maintained that.
Yeah.
From the beginning,
Yeah,
since I've been talking to you about politics, you've always maintained that change can only come from
one man.
Yeah, you always maintained that.
And you know, my friend Darren Zedon used to disagree.
You
with
used to
me.
disagree with us.
And then one day he finally said,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yes.
We never will make it change the country.
But let me ask you quickly though. If you, I mean, we have all the top political leaders now in the country, right? If you were asked, say, one of them asked you to advise them, say, how can I win an election? I mean, you guys, you guys know the
Plead
game.
the fifth.
Don't be the fifth, man.
Well, we'll give you some generalities.
Yes, tell me.
How many election?
You know,
No, I'll
Let me tell you something
I'll
about
say
that.
plead the fifth to go with 7 hours.
especially the 2029, they're coming. If you are, if a party asks you to Costa, we saw what you have done in the country. So how you resurrect people from to make them relevant, everything you have done a lot. How can you help someone in George or John Brown for 2029?
That's a good question. And I can answer that question. So can my brother Ben effectively. We know how. But it's a lot of work.
Exactly.
It's a lot of work. You know, I've said this to you, my brother, to my private conversations and when I last appeared on the closing argument. You can do it. It takes a lot of work. Joseph Boakai after 2017 didn't want to run again. He made it clear that he was not going to run again. He didn't see it. But when we formed COP and we called that protest and we beat VIA in Montserrat, June 7th was the protest, January was the election. And then we realized that but a lot of John Weah is not invincible after all. He can be beaten. And then now President Walker began to say, okay, it looks like we can do this stuff. So it took a lot of work. President Walker already had name recognition. He already had been in the political, on the political landscape for a long time. He had run before and done very well, came second to Weah. But people were looking past it. When people say Henry Costa resuscitated Joe Boakai, we did not make Joe Boakai. Joe Boakai was already made before he was even born.
That's true.
He was a known political figure. But after 2017 elections, it didn't seem like he would run again.
Sure.
It didn't seem like he was viable again. Because some people wrote him off because of age, some people wrote him off because they thought he was tired, he was done, But what we were able to do essentially by us being affiliated with him. I remember there were those who used to tell me, Costa, it's too early to declare for a side. Many people
In fact, I was opposed to you declaring.
but
I used to beat you all the time.
I didn't want to call
I mean,
him.
I'm serious.
I didn't want to call him.
I used to beat you all the time.
Before people get out.
After that COP, I was like, I said COP should take a side.
Yeah, you can
Yes,
see that.
yes.
But you know what Ben did?
Yeah.
Ben never took a side.
I know that.
He never took a side. He always said, my man, it's too early because we were such a powerful force.
Powerful fools.
Very powerful.
We were too powerful at our Ben's point.
Yeah.
By the time we declare you take a side, people will say in the CDC, oh, you're only doing it to
You're
help
only doing it
further
to
your
help this
own
person.
political
Yeah,
agenda.
yeah.
That was Ben's point.
Yeah.
But, come to think of it, he was right. But then again, had we not taken a side as early as we did with Joe
Yeah.
Boakai, would Joe Boakai be president today? Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe, or
Yeah.
maybe not.
But and the funny thing, and I'll cut you off, the funny thing though also is, I think with Henry, he's driven by, when he's passionate about something, it's almost like a struggle because listen, I think that's what drove him. I think he believed in President Boakai, now President Boakai. I think he really did believe in him, but like he said, my point was, listen, we have a political tool here, right? We have something strong here. Because let me tell you what my thought process was on him. My thought process was we have to force these old people into recognizing our importance. That was my issue.
Yeah.
I was like, they need to stop thinking that we are just going to be foot soldiers. And you remember there was a point after the Dillon election. I said to them, guys, let's form a political action committee.
Yeah.
Let's form a political action committee. Let's put the information out there that if these people don't get their act together, we will put a ticket out.
But you have a perception out there, though, such an election, right? And based on your activities in the past, when I go to social gathering, whether that funeral or some cookout, we're talking about the people say that. I hear people say this all the time. The same zeal that Costa and others put behind other candidates, if they put it behind any candidate, that person can win.
Good, perhaps.
Yes.
But the person would have to have some certain qualities themselves to begin with. But anybody can be sold. Any product can be sold. This is a country where we've made murderers warlords.
Yeah.
And as long as there's nobody too terrible in the eye like that, the people are very forgiving.
Very,
Very forgiving.
very forgiving.
You know, even you give people, they can say they can forgive you. Then what do you get? You can see they can forgive you. So there is nobody that cannot be made. That cannot, but it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it can be done. I agree.
And commitment.
Let me ask this question.
Yeah.
Costa, you guys, like you have been, okay, you guys have this strength, you guys have this, you have these gifts, right? So for me, I know I have a tailing party. I'm talking about always a tailing party, right? But if we try to hire one of you, hire you guys. Now,
Wait, your partner trying to hire us?
I come in. Let me ask you a question. I mean, and honestly, what I believe is that I believe that you guys have to pay you have to pay a price, right? A lot. Decide depending which side you go on, you choose to support. They will insult you. They will say all kinds of things about you. But going forward, if somebody decides to hire you guys, your expertise, will you guys do it for them for free again, or will you guys say, look, I'm not doing it because I want to be in your government, but I believe in you. What would be like? People are asking that question now. What would be like?
Two things.
Yeah.
If I thought you were a good candidate, who I agree with on so many things the way I want to see the country, I could support you for free.
Yeah.
But if I thought you were a Fiamomo candidate, ideologically we were not aligned. We were just trying to run. And if I were desperate and wanted to make some money, I would support you. Because of the money. I'm being very honest. Because you see political consultants like in this country.
Exactly.
They support candidates they don't believe in. But they believe in
The paycheck.
they believe in the paycheck, they believe in Benjamin. You know? So if it's about the money, but if you're a candidate that I align
Don't
with,
forget, though, you're very young. You have a future ahead of you, and I believe you have a future that one day you may run for a higher office, whatever the
of
case.
course I want to run for office.
So now, in doing you just saying it now, but I know you will not do it because of the money now. Like say,
No, but seriously, we're not going to support that money. Now we're trying to make our own money.
Exactly.
What's the matter about money?
but if somebody will hire you, you definitely don't do it for them for free too. I won't say you do it for free because they take advantage of you too.
Well, my brother, I will say this to you. There has to come a time in a man's life where you have to put a price on yourself.
Yes.
And a price sometimes not just about money.
Yeah.
It's about value.
Value.
Yeah.
If you truly share my value, and we truly share values about what we want to see in the country, we can support you. We will go all out for you. Maybe not the same way we went all out for Joe Biden because that was a different time. We don't have that same time on our hands. I'm not going back to talk show. The reason we were so successful in marketing Joe Biden was because we had a talk show. You know, I was saying something the other day. People thought I was just trying to throw shade at my good friend Mobile Model in his organization who organized this.
No, but since you said that, let me tell you that now. When you said that on the TCA, things have changed. You said to do a protest, you have your face that be involved.
You gotta talk about it.
We saw Malu, and I think up and down.
Well, the June 7 protest. The June 7 protest. It was on the radio. It was spontaneous. It had the people. And one thing that I also know, and I think we need to say this: you cannot get angry before the people.
Yeah, I agree with
You
that.
cannot get angry before the country. You as the leader, or you as the advocate that is trying to rally people around a cause, the people gotta get angry first. Then it's almost like you gotta meet the people halfway, right?
True.
You can't get angry and then say, you know what, I will make the people angry. No. So for me, listen, I believe it is a fundamental right that is inherent within the Constitution of Liberia for the freedom of assembly. People should. Listen, the most powerful line in that Constitution is that the people can alter their government.
Yeah.
It means you gotta go alter your government. They say you can alter your government, you can challenge your governors. So I support the right for them to go out there. Yeah, Henry Costa, when he was doing all the complaining in 2018, 2019, I told him, I said, Costa, you have the biggest voice in the country. At one point in time, I was looked at as the leader of this pact when I decided I wanted to run for the Senate. You supported me. You came, I still remember the endorsement that Costa gave me. If I have the team send me hour on the Costa show. But I told him, I said, now you have the baton. It is incumbent upon us now. This is not about overthrowing your government. No. This is about, in local Liberian parlance, putting a dead slap in the government ear. And letting the government know that you got to wake the hell up. So when I told him, I said, call it.
Yeah.
Call the people. Call them to action. And what happened on that day? Thousands and thousands of women were calling. Man, boy, you know what born that day. All these people were born. All these ordinary people took to the radio.
Yeah, what I got.
Came to prominence.
And
Captain
came
Wendy, the military guy used to call me John.
Captain Swag.
Yeah, swag, right? I thought, all these people. So for me, but guess what? The timing was also right.
Timing is
The
very
timing was also right.
The
Right?
mood that was in the
The
country. It's
mood
not
that
same
was in
mood
the
we have now.
country. You know, so listen, for me, I think at the end of the day, I respect and I support the right of people to hold the government accountable.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I keep saying this to I'm still a member of the Liberty Party. Well, I know if we in the opposition or we have, I think we one way, I think we one for in, one for all, right? Before Dylan,
So the young lady and Dylan Washington.
before Dylan and my senator John B. Canal or Katie. But let me say this: we have to be cognizant of a couple of things. You cannot, and I don't believe the opposition can beat Unity Party with the same strategy that Unity Party used on the last government. Every election is unique. Every timing is unique.
The issues are different.
The issues are different.
The mood is
The
different.
mood
players
is
are
different. Barack Obama would have never been president if Bush had not invaded Iraq. He would have never been president of America. And guess what? You know the twist of that, Costa? Maybe you will disagree or you will agree with me on it. The twist of that is, if Obama was in the Senate, he would have voted for the Iraq war. Because guess what? He would have also seen the same intelligence that Hillary Clinton saw.
Yeah.
But because he wasn't in the Senate,
Yeah, he used it against them.
he used it against Hillary Clinton. He said a war that should have never been waged and authorized. So he became the Democratic nominee. So my only thing though is, such as the timing, such as the time, and it has to be unique to that particular. That's why when you hear him say it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, there's a lot. When you talk about 2029, I think there's a long time between now and 2029, but I think people need to start doing their work. I still believe, and this is where me and you can always have this conversation, I still believe the doorway to the executive mansion passes through one of these two political parties, the CDC and the Unity Party. I'm yet to be proven wrong. I may be proven wrong, right? But at the end of the day, I think we have to be cognizant of the reality.
But what you guys made up, people are saying that now, like real major problem we have is legislative and the road network.
Mhm.
People are saying that if even we have good roads, we have legislative stable, if the people's lives are not impacted, if people don't have employment, no jobs, and people don't have national investments coming in the country, they will have an effect on the election.
True.
I agree.
I absolutely agree.
I agree. It's gonna
Look,
yeah.
the biggest thing, I was the voice of the Walker presidential movement. Everybody knows that. And the number one thing we used to preach to people was the people are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
The June 7th project, the team of the people are suffering.
People are suffering.
The people are still suffering. And President Walker said it the last time in 2 cabinet meetings ago. If you cannot address the economic problems in the country, a few roads here and there, a few bridges here and there, will not assuage the people's wrath.
No.
When the time comes, they will vote you out. The people grade your performance based on the measure, the economic or the difference in their own lives. I know it's nominal, you know, from government to government, it's a very nominal difference that the people experience in their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to feel that you know, people want to work, people want jobs. So you have to focus on the bread and butter issues. But what our government, what they do, every government that comes to power, they focus on a few little projects here and there
Yeah.
that don't really change the people's lives. You need to focus on creating jobs. And you need to stop waiting for investors to come.
Yeah.
You need to borrow from some of the things that Traore is doing.
Yep.
Take some of these natural resource assets back. Nationalize them. Own them. Hire companies to operate them and give them 10%, 15% equity from what is produced from there. Which will give you hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue that you can use for mechanized agriculture, massive infrastructure development to create jobs, low income housing development projects. But hey, that is not the kind of thinking that is in Liberia. Liberians are mediocre people. They're scared. They take their own gold mine back from a foreign company. They're scared.
Yeah.
They think the foreign company will beat their butt. They're scared. That will not happen.
So now our major partner, the U.S., America.
Wait, Antonio, before you go there,
Music.
I want to say something to what he said. It cannot be a race of the projects. Every government that has come in Liberia, there has been this race of the projects.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what the hell is a 100-day deliverable? I think we need to do away with that foolishness. I'm being honest.
It's a political thing.
No, I agree with that's what I'm saying. But it's so you're talking about radical, you're talking about effective change, you're talking about what do I see? I want to see a president get inaugurated, and in his inauguration speech, right, outline these things that that some of the things that you were talking about here, Henry, right? Bold, decisive things, right? Bold, decisive things. Like I say, all they race to the next project, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
Because every government
has
not changed.
And then guess what? You know what ended up happening, right? After every 100 day, what happens normally in Liberia? The media take the newspaper, take the microphone in the market and ask the people.
Yeah.
Then the people beat on, when Jawia was here, we had this. Or when Ellie was here, we had this. Or when Boka was here, I can guarantee you if anybody replaced President Boka in 2029,
They'll be praising
100 days after 2029, right? 2030, you will see the same thing happening, right? So there have to be a race. It can't be a race to these little projects. It has to be. It must be a race to bold new solutions and ideas. And like Henry said, we got to start moving the needle on the people's lives. The people got to start feeling this thing to the extent that they don't care if the president is riding a Lexus. They don't care if the government, if ministers, they don't even care. The whole country full of politics because you know what? Everything is consumed in politics.
You know, Alex Cummings said something the other day.
In that he response.
Just to borrow from something.
Yeah.
Ben said something that triggered us. Cummings said, and I read his post.
Yeah.
And Cummings doesn't trend a lot. But this particular post trended.
It did.
It did.
Really, really. And it was a very powerful.
Yeah, it was powerful.
I thought it was very
Cummings
powerful.
said, look, to be fair, there's sometimes it's necessary to fly private jet.
Mm-hmm.
And who would know such a thing if not Alex Cummings, right? This man was
I manage a
number
fleet.
2 man.
I manage a fleet of private jets.
Yeah. Every time Cummings going to meet, he's not coming
Of
to
course.
We're on a private jet.
Yeah.
But Cummings is telling you that just sometimes, for example, President Bola has to go to Nigeria. Do you know the route? Monrovia to Accra, Accra to Lome, Lome to Lagos.
Then Lagos, Abuja.
Yeah. So normally is impractical. It is painful for the president and his entourage to be traveling in that manner. But the point Cummings was making is this, which is a good point. That if Liberian people have bread and butter issue where people they will not care whether he fly private jet.
They won't care.
And I agree with Cummings.
Yeah.
So because it makes sense, like President Obama said it last time. Sometimes it's necessary. I gotta fly private. He went to Nigeria in a few days.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What did he go on?
Oscar.
He went on Oscar.
You know why?
got the noise, right?
Because they made noise.
But
Okay, one of the differences. John Bell will not care about the noise. They made, let's be
no, but he unfair that.
Yeah.
He probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, he probably wouldn't.
And I was going,
Yeah.
he was still going in private. Joe Bell got to look at him alone and said, okay, the people didn't make it noise, let me go. But I know what he has to go through. Because he has to get on Asa to go to Accra. It's an hour and 30 minutes. He sat on the plane for another hour from there to Lomé. It's
From
about
Lomé,
25 minutes to Lomé.
Yeah.
He sat there for another hour and a half to go to
Lagos.
Then from Lagos to go to Abuja. It's just too much.
So that leads us to the conversation about how we do our politics.
Yes.
Because that is what is killing Joe Biden.
Yeah.
It's killing this government.
Yeah.
Right? Because when when people when Dylan came out and said we apologize, the
Yeah.
president people beat up on him.
But that was
But
right.
he was right.
All right.
He was right.
Because we made noise.
Because we
But I mean,
Yeah,
yes. I support the
he
government
was
today.
he
But
was
I was trying to
the
have a private
everybody private.
In fact, it's true, John, we are who are attacking on.
Yeah.
We're trying to analyze this. So we did this. So there's a degree of hypocrisy here.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, like Ben said, when you fix those bread and butter issues,
Nobody worry about
the
that.
Nigerian will not care. You know who will be making noise? The political elites.
Yes.
But now, the ordinary will be making noise.
So I'll give you an example before we move to the next. I know you want to move to the next thing. So just to end on that, I think for me, and I think that is the acknowledgement. I think that needs to happen. That we need to elevate our politics at some point. And listen, politics will always be petty, right? There will always be little petty shots here and there at the end of the day. But now we understand that it does make sense,
Yeah.
right? In certain cases for this thing to happen. The second thing is, like you rightly said, Henry, on the issue of giving the people the bread and butter issues. I was watching, there's an old Oprah Winfrey show's episode where she was interviewing women from the Arab world. And this was International Women's Day. And I love this episode. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you guys. She interviewed a woman from Kenya. She interviewed a woman from, I think, Qatar. She interviewed another woman from this Afghanistan woman, somebody from Afghanistan and stuff like that. And the woman from Kenya was talking about democracy and blah, 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 and how they have the right to do this and da, 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 da. And long story short, she was talking about the power of women, and women is this, and Rwanda, all the women rights and so and so and so. But guess what? What was fascinating in that conversation, and this is just to tie into what you were talking about earlier. What was fascinating in that conversation was the woman from the Middle East, from Qatar, Kuwait, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. So Oprah actually said, how do you feel that you don't have freedom? Before you go out, you gotta wear a hijab. You can't wear a mini skirt. You can't, and you can't do the thing that normal, if you look in the West thing. But you know what was fascinating though? The woman said, first of all, the Oprah said, what about the fact that, so don't you want change? And the woman said, what are elections about? Elections are either to keep what you have because it's working, or to change it because it's not working. In my case, I don't want change. Even though I'm wearing a hijab, but guess what? When I born a child, my child already has a trust fund from my mother.
Unlike you from the West,
Unlike you from the
walk
West,
naked.
thank you. Who walking around in miniskirt and who doing, who can face their hair and do everything and so. Guess what? When you born a child, you gotta figure out how that child is gonna go to college.
So
right?
the bigger picture is,
Take care of your people.
and everybody issues are not the same.
Exactly.
Your realities are different from my realities.
So what's the way forward now? What's the way forward? How do we take advantage of?
Look, guys, the way forward for our country. You see, in America, a lot of Americans don't go to vote when elections happen. They don't care, especially in local elections. They don't know who their council members are, or they don't know who their local officials are. They don't care to know. But you know what they know? They know that the system will work. They know that if there's a pothole somewhere along the road, it will get fixed. They know that utilities will. But unlike Liberia or Sierra Leone or Ghana, these countries, the lives of the people
they revolve around the policies and the decisions and the action and inaction of those in power. So the way forward is we gotta keep voting. That is why whenever elections are held in Africa, our people don't give up. They will cry. When elections come, they will be very excited. They will go and they will vote.
Yeah.
Look, I say this often. The Liberian people are like a wonderful, beautiful woman. I mean, complete with all the characteristics you find in a great woman. This woman, all her life, she's only dated bad men. All she knows is bad men. She didn't know anything about having a good man who takes care of her and all that kind of thing, who appreciates her. She's got good men chasing her, but she doesn't believe they're really good.
She doesn't know what good looks
She doesn't know what good looks like because she's not experienced good. So Liberia is like that until the day she meets and gives that good man a chance.
Are you guys aware that now you guys are all in your 40s? You guys have a whole future ahead of you guys. Now, are you aware that the 2029? I always say that.
Eric, you sound like
It is-
today, America.
every
Every
election
election
is
is the
very
most important election in history.
election history. But you guys, I know you guys are paying attention. That whatever decision you guys will make 2029 will affect your political future.
Oh, I agree.
Are you guys?
Man, every decision you make will affect your future.
Exactly.
In one way or the
Yeah,
other.
but depending on which side, where you guys will go.
I agree.
People watching you guys. Costa, people watching that. I'm telling you now. People watching you guys. We have an interview today. People watching around the world. They are concerned about what you guys are thinking about the way forward, the future ahead. I know you say it's 4 years from now, but yet it's still.
Here's what we know.
Yes.
There's certain things we know, there's certain things we don't know. What we know is that whether those who are watching agree or disagree, or twist their mouths in disgust, they can fool themselves all they want. But here's what we know. Whoever wants to be the next president of Liberia will reach out to Ben Senvi, will reach out to Henry Costa, will reach out to Tomalin George. Because
This is the important part of the program.
because
Guys on the show tonight.
and I don't say this with my head bowed. I say this with a flare of confidence. You may interpret it as arrogant, but I will indulge you. We have already earned ourselves a seat at the table. That we don't want to decide we don't want government job. The people think that we don't want
Exactly.
to get a job. What the people don't know, we are the ones that can say, the very first time I met President Buhari, and he was like, hey, no, for this thing, you left, and so I said, oh, the devil keep between. Or he said, now we are here now, we need to see how we can work together. You know what you're implying? How we can work together?
Yeah.
I said, Uncle, I just want to be in the private sector. I made it clear from the very, very beginning. So the point I'm making here is this. We already have a voice and a seat at the table.
Yes.
So there is no way an election will be held in 2029 that we will not be on a side that is a formidable side. Whether that side wins or not, it doesn't matter, but it will be a formidable side. So at the end of the day, we're not going to stand by and not be involved.
Yeah.
That's one thing I can assure you.
Yeah.
There is no way that Henry Costa, Ben Senvi, Tomalin George, B. Bale, Kev Hassan, and the likes of us are going to stand by because look, we are duty bound.
Yeah.
We have a voice in the public space. People look to us, and we are political animals.
Yep.
Do I know that somebody will let on in my baby having election? I beg you, yeah. I will pick a side. I will defend that side. That side may not be perfect. It may not be the best side, but I will pick a side and I will defend that side and I will sell that side to the best of my ability.
Liberians, if you're watching this live,
That argument.
he just said
Well,
it.
I mean,
He just said it. It's up to you now.
So neutrality.
he's talking to him. He's talking to his people. Don't
To
worry.
tell you.
He's talking to
tell you.
He's not going to sit aside. And I can tell you this, regardless of what people say about Henry Costa or Ben Senvi, trust me, these young guys, they have made their name. They have paid the price. And they are capable of transforming anyone into someone.
But I do want to say though, there's a portion of what he said, and then I slightly disagree with him when he said we may not win. Listen, I've been very clear. the years of me or the time of me doing election to make a statement, those days are gone. I want to win. Because all of the things that we've talked about, right? Something Henry Costa have always said to me privately, and I can say it publicly. For you to impact and to effect the changes that we want to see in Liberia, you have to win power.
Yes.
You cannot govern
Govern
before you win.
You gotta win.
You have to win before
govern.
you govern.
And it takes
Right?
whatever.
And it takes a lot. But again, like you said, totally, and like Henry said, I would be a little more modest than because I think he can take the DT more than I can. I just tire with it. But no, I'm just playing. But no, in all fairness, I think the moment is coming for that when that critical mass will happen. We can't. You can't escape it. It's not gonna. It's inescapable. You can't escape it. Like you said, we are political animals, right? We love our country. We want to see our country do well. We are far from perfect, but we also believe that there's still good people out there who can change the trajectory of the country. And like you rightly said, it starts with the executive mansion.
Yeah.
And who occupies that executive mansion will set the tone for the country to follow.
I want to chime in on this quote before I see our producers alerting us. There's a beautiful quote from a speech by Theodore Roosevelt, who's president of America, 26th president. And this quote is from a speech he delivered on April 23rd, 1910 in Paris. And he said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena,
Exactly.
whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails, while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat."
That's our story.
There are people who are cold and timid.
Yeah.
They don't know defeat. They don't know victory.
Yeah.
They get criticized.
Yeah.
Somebody in a bad man.
Yeah.
He's a seller.
But we
He's a
don't
this,
we
he's
don't
a
put that in.
But guess what? You are ABC.
Yeah.
I think you say I can play for Ali and I play the fool. You say I can't. I'm not a score goal. Ali, I bet on the field. But you get Jesse.
Yep.
You not get Jesse.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we will keep fighting.
Powerful, and I think we're doing our closing.
Yeah, so we're about to do the closing.
Yeah.
And I want to say this, look, if you're watching and whoever you're watching, just know this. You have gotten a lot. And I will say this again. I know these two gentlemen well. In fact, one of those, the first person to endorse Ben 7, you represent it. I endorsed it for my friend Josh Weir at the time. Where I thought Ben would win, well, I knew I believed in at the time. But if you are saying that Henry, Pedro, Costa, Benjamin Sandy, if you are going to dismiss them, then you're on the losing side. I'm telling you, forget what people say for them. But if you have these guys on your team going forward, trust me, you are heading in the right direction. I will say this, they have there, whatever it takes to make things happen. The records are there. You saw what it did. So I would urge you guys, and who watching this program right now, to not dismiss them, to not overlook them. We are serious people. They have impacted the whole nation. So I would not express my thanks to Olaus and ask Chairman Henry Costa and Chairman Semi to give their closing comments.
Let me go first, and then Henry can wrap up. Henry can close up. So listen, first of all, let me thank Olaus for beautiful setup. I'm almost and I'm almost pushed to say that I maybe want to move to New Jersey to just to use this studio all the time, because this is my first time actually doing a actual sit-in podcast like that. I'm used to the StreamYard, right, where you get on your computer and you look in the computer and you're talking. But I will say, and I want to say something about Olagus and his team and the work they're doing, impacting our community. Obviously, the Liberian community, the Sierra Leone community, the Guinean community, the West African community as a whole. They're doing great work. I understand there is an annual July 26th white party. We are going to be, just for the record, we are going to be attending. I think Henry Costa is going to be the keynote at the July 26th program. So we're going to be looking forward to that program and what it brings, just to come and fellowship, to get a sense of how we can all work together as brothers and sisters. So he has done great things, and I'm so proud of this brother and what he has accomplished, his story. In fact, Henry and I was joking him that July 26th weekend, we are going to be interviewing him. He likes to stay behind the camera. So we're putting him on blast now that he's not going to stay behind the camera for July 26th. We're going to bring him on the camera, and we are going to ask him about his story and how he's been able to build such a powerful organization that he has here. But to end, I will say this, Tommy, and like you said, you were so kind with your words, and look, Henry, please, you should send me that piece that you just read. I think that piece alone personifies our story, and I dare to say our because some of the criticisms that goes towards you comes the same towards me. Then you this, you're not stable, you this, what is it, you Kekurakoto, you this and that. But I always tell people, I think, for people who don't know Kekurakoto was one of the most successful Liberian politicians.
Yeah, so there's a lot to learn from him.
There's a lot to learn. If you don't learn from him and you think maybe it's a joke, maybe that's why you keep losing, right? Because in politics, people don't get involved in politics to lose. You don't get involved in politics to lose. You build political alliances to win. That's why I love Kenyan politics. In Kenyan politics, political parties are not tattoos. Because even tattoos can be removed now. If your interest or the interest that you believe or the vision that you have for your country is not being served by one organization, there's nothing that binds you to say you got to die there. I said it the other day, I think it was some closing argument, when someone was beating up on somebody, and I said, there are stages in the progressive lifespan. You become an activist, you become an advocate, you become an activist, you graduate to solution bearing, and then you become an implementer. When you become a solution bearer and an implementer, that's when you are in government. That's when you have power to be able to change people's lives. But anybody who strives to be an activist and an advocate for the rest of their life, you will die just talking and not making change. Because guess what? Even Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King Jr., who, by the way, if his life was not cut short, even him had a dream that he wanted to see his people get to the mountaintop. He wanted to see, he said, I see the promised land, but I will not, even though I may not get there with you. Martin Luther King would have said, I will continue agitating. Even though I see that promised land, no, you don't go there. You'll stay here, you'll just keep agitating, you'll leave that promised land alone. That's progress. And that's my message to my country. When you have to graduate. You have to graduate from mediocrity to supremacy. You have to graduate from small thoughts to big ideas. You have to graduate from just being stuck and saying, you know what? I will die with a movement. If your interest and your vision is not being served in that movement, you form another movement, or you join another movement, or you move to people who share your thoughts and your aspirations, and you don't just sit and remain static. Because a static man is a dead man. Only dead people don't move. So you got to free your mind from this mental slavery that, oh, because somebody moved and they do something, it means they are inconsistent. The only thing about inconsistency is being static. That's where that's where you just sitting down. So I want to thank you, Tommy. I think this was a great conversation, Henry. Lovely conversation again, like I said. I will go ahead and turn it over to Henry Costa to go
That's
ahead
the
and finish.
voice of Benjamin Sevi, the former youth advisor, presidential youth advisor to the president of Liberia, former chairman of the Liberty Party, the youngest and the first in history as a presidential youth advisor, Benjamin Sevi. We now go to the man of the hour, the great Reverend Pedro Costa, the man who has changed the dynamics of Liberian politics, regardless of which side you're on. Henry Costa and Liberian politics just cannot separate them. Mr. Costa.
Well, thank you, my brother. I want to just say to Ben, my brother Ben, in his closing,
Mhm.
you know, he just nailed it very beautifully. In politics, there are two things. You are either being used or you are using somebody. There has to come a time that you have to use somebody. And it may not be for a bad reason.
True.
You can't always be used. So you gotta there's a time for you to follow and time for you to lead. And so in my closing, I want to say a big thank you to the CEO of Olaus Entertainment, Brother Sanfa Kamara. He is a West African brother, our Sierra Leonean brother from right next door. Sierra Leoneans and Liberians, we share a lot in common. We borrow a lot of things from them. You know, like famous Liberian words like Peking and all those things, Sabi and those things.
Yeah.
Sierra Leonean. We want to thank him, and as Ben said, he's a smooth operator in the background. But we're going to put him on the into the worst stage.
On the worst stage. On the worst stage.
We'll put him on the worst stage in the weekend of July 26th. We will be here. We've been, humbly extended the invitation to serve as guest speaker at his all-white annual gala. So we will come and interview him to tell his story. There are Liberians, there are Sierra Leoneans, there are Ghanaians, in general, West Africans who are doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are quiet, you don't know them, and these are the people who like to celebrate. We believe in celebrating people who have accomplished, because it's a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
It's easy to make noise in a political party and find a patron in that party, and when you win, they give you a job.
Yeah.
But it is hard to succeed in the private sector. It's extremely hard. That's why 90% of the world's population are employees.
Yep.
And only 10% are entrepreneurs and employers. So we need to celebrate such people, and there's a lot to be learned from them. So one is a thanks to the producer, thanks to the team. And this is our first time here, but this will not be our last time. And we've had a great time here, and we're looking forward to July 26th weekend when we'll come back here and have a great time. And to our Liberian people who are watching, to those of you who are still in your feelings about 2023 elections, you should just look at your political leaders. Look at them. When elections come, people are in their feelings. After the elections, people move on. Because they realize that the people who may not have stayed with you or who may not have supported you during the elections are not necessarily your enemies.
True.
They were just pursuing their own agenda. And that agenda may not have aligned with your agenda at the time. Today, I know a lot of people are surprised that the president and I are fine, we're good. That we will sit at the same table and eat together. A lot of people are shocked. But you shouldn't be. Because at the end of the day, human beings have a way to yearn to naturally reconcile when they once had a good relationship. It's an innate characteristic. The same thing with the folks in the CDC. I don't consider George Weah, former President Weah, as an enemy of mine at all. I think George Weah, with all his imperfections, but my own imperfections, I think he's a phenomenal Liberian.
and we supported him in 2023 in the 11th hour. Something I felt, we didn't bring a lot to the table with George Weah. I don't think so. I don't think we brought a lot to the table because we went in 2 weeks to the election. There's not much we could do, But at the same time, you cannot write him off. If you had elections today, he'll be where he's at. So I'm saying this to say we're all one people.
Yeah.
We will have disagreements. You, the small people, need to understand that the big people don't really listen to you when it comes to that. You need to understand that. Sometimes you see this as a betrayal.
Yeah.
Why would President Obama say, well, me, I dining table and eat after all the things I said about him? Because at the end of the day, human beings, especially when they've had relationships, they can reconcile.
Yeah.
That's why God, who made us, can say, you can do anything, God can forgive you. And you can still be redeemed and go to heaven. So we're one people from one region, and the sky is the limit for us. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here before.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Mute it, right?
We need to take